Welcome back to the channel, guys. I'm back with another update on my Go Format website, and we're still at the deck builder, but I do have some exciting changes, and I just want to update you guys on how things are going. And there is an update for the actual dueling aspect, but it's still very early in the works. But here I am in the start page, and I'm logged in as a user account. So I just want to showcase that this aspect that I'm about to show you of the website is working. But basically, you can see that there is no deck loaded, and this user account does not have any decks created at all. However, if we log out and if we log in as a different account, you can see that it actually has a deck. And not just one, but it has two decks created. And so this is basically an account that I was kind of just testing things around with. But basically, I just wanted to showcase that deck creation, deletion, and modification basically works without any issues. So here I have the chaos control deck that I kind of showed. Actually, I think the main deck is accurate, but like the side deck is all over the place. It has like a blue eyes for some reason. But anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to show you guys. Basically, I've kind of cleaned things up a bit. If you saw my previous videos, you would notice that basically things are kind of actually properly aligned now. I decided to align the card preview with the deck grid and with the search section here as well. So they're all properly aligned, and I think that this looks a lot better. In addition to that, before I had only like 2 or 3 buttons here at the top. Now I have many more buttons. And so let's go ahead and give it a shot. So let's say I want to create a new deck. Well, I just have to press this new button and a new deck gets created. So in order for this deck to be saved, however, you actually have to, save the deck, right? So let's say that I'm just going to add a bunch of random cards here, just for the sake of actually having an entire deck. Because one thing that I did implement, which I'm still thinking about, basically, there's a requirement that your deck has to be a minimum of 40 cards. Otherwise, if your deck doesn't have, basically, if it's not like legal to play, you can't create it. So that's why I have to like add a bunch of random cards. And so you can save the deck, but if you try to save it, it's not going to work. You have to go here to File and then Save As, and then you can give it a name. I'll just name whatever, and then you can click Save. By the way that it looks right now, like this, it's not going to look this way. There's going to be a pop-up. It's not going to look so ugly. But basically, you'll get a pop-up that allows you to give the deck a new name, and then you can click Save. And here we have some confirmation. If you go into your deck selector, you'll see that the deck has been successfully saved. So I want to kind of discuss a couple things and clarify a couple things regarding that. This header section is heavily subject to change. There are so many things that I'm constantly debating and considering. And it's going to be very interesting when, the mobile version of the site, when it comes time for me to actually start addressing that as well. But I just, I find it kind of difficult cramming in so many buttons because there's so many different, features that I want to add, and it can be kind of difficult without making things look, too cramped up and whatnot. But essentially, the way I decided to do things is here at the top, you have this selector here. So this is basically, it acts as two things. It acts as the name of the deck so that you can see which deck you're currently viewing. But in addition to that, when you click on it, and you can see it signified with this small drop-down icon, basically when you click on it, you'll see that this is your deck selector. So I decided to kind of put it as like a 2-in-1 where this is kind of the section where you can view your decks, but you can also make some edits that are relevant to, either to the name of the deck or whether it's your default deck or not. So currently we can see that the default deck is Chaos Control. If I want to make this new deck default, we could just click on Set Default, and then you'll see that this is now the default deck. And if I exit out of the deck builder and come back, you'll see that this deck is now being loaded up because it's a default deck. I'm not sure if I'm going to add like an additional indicator to show that it's default. I'm pretty sure that if it loads up by default when you go into the deck builder, I think that should probably be enough. But here you can also rename the deck. So this is like a crazy name. Let's make it something more understandable. And so you can see that that's been renamed. So like I said, these small little updates here where it's saying, rename deck, save deck, whatever, that's not going to appear. It's going to be different. It's going to be much more intuitive, obviously. This is just me testing it out, making sure that everything is working correctly. But yeah, so you can see that for this area, this is where I decided to put the deck selector, and here you have some relevant actions to the decks themselves, right? Here, obviously, you have the new deck button. I wanted to make it stand out. I wanted to make it pretty clear that you're, creating a new deck. And I also ended up making a poll on my channel basically asking about whether there should be manual saving or if there should be automatic saving. Kind of like in Google Docs where, you're making a change. Let's say I decide to add BLS to my side deck. And then basically this gets automatically saved. I don't have to press a button. 75% of you answered for it to be automatic. And just like usual, I'm probably just going to end up adding some sort of an option for that. So you're basically, if you prefer manual saving, you could just go ahead and go to the settings and, set that as default. Or if you prefer automatic saving, you could choose to set that as your default instead. But that's why here I do have a save button, and I was just testing to ensure that it properly works. I forgot to set this as default. So let's go ahead and do that. And yeah, so saving works, clearing the deck works. I don't remember if this was, in my previous video or not, but you can see it clears your entire deck. And if we don't click save, if we don't do anything, it doesn't actually save any changes. In addition, I also added a sorting feature. So here there are numerous things you can choose to sort your cards by. So you could do it either alphabetically, or you could do it by type, so that it, pieces all the monsters together which share the same type. You could do it by level. Now, one thing you might notice is Blue Eyes is level 8, so you might think it should be at the very beginning. It probably should. I kind of did it similar to the way Dueling Book does it. So I also have a ritual monster here. I have Relinquish, so let me really quickly remove that and add it here. So if I sorted once again, let's say by name, you'll see that the order that it naturally goes through is monsters, effect monsters, normal monsters, and then finally ritual monsters. So essentially, with the whole, let's say you want to, sort things by level, the Blue Eyes White Dragon is still going to be like basically at the top, but specifically for normal monsters. So if you have like a Dark Magician or something like that, it's going to be after the Blue Eyes. But we'll see. I might, for these specific ones, like if you're doing it by level or maybe attack or whatever, just for consistency's sake, I might do it so that it ignores whether the monster is normal or a ritual or not. I just figured this is a little bit more organized in general, but I can see how it can be restrictive as well. But yeah, so there's another one. There's by copies. So if you want to see your cards by the amount of copies that they have, like, essentially the ones that are listed first, or the ones that are at triple copies, then double copies, then a single copy. I basically added that as well. Of course, the expand and collapse button still works for the expanded view. I have yet to implement where it's automatic. The idea is that when you add a card, it should automatically expand. If you have 40 cards and you add the 41st card, it should automatically expand to, the 60 card slot view, but I haven't done that yet. And then I added a new button, which is just called File for now, I guess. So again, because I don't want to clutter things, and also I want to make sure that you can view the names of the decks. So let's say I rename this to something longer. Let's say you're building a Reasoning Gate Turbo deck. So let's type that up really quick. Basically, I want to ensure that the whole name is visible so that it's not too crowded with buttons. And there are just so many buttons here. So if you click on File, this is where you have the Save As button. So if you don't want to just make a change specifically to this deck, you want to save it as something new, you could click Save As. I'll just call it New. We can save it, and here it is. Now you still have your original deck, but you also have the copy of it, I suppose. So I added that over there. And in addition to that, you have some other functions. There's importing the deck, exporting the deck. I haven't implemented that yet, but this basically will work with Dueling Book. It exports the deck as a YDK file, and you can import YDK files from Dueling Book. So that's going to be fully supported as well. And I did implement the screenshot here. It's not fully finished because I do want to make some changes. But let's say, for example, let me show you an example here. So this is basically the example of what a screenshot would look like, at least for now. Essentially, you just click a button and it just saves it as a PNG file to your computer. I know Dueling Book does it where it uploads it online and whatnot, but I figured this is so much faster and this is so much easier. When you try to take a screenshot using the button on Dueling Book, like, it takes forever for it to upload it. And yeah, you get the benefit that you can share the link, but I think that many people anyway, they probably just use the default screenshot tool from their computers. So this basically kind of helps you do that, but even faster. And it's very clean. It's a very clean representation of your deck. I just wanted to maybe get rid of some of the extra space and padding here. I might make it so that it doesn't say side deck, fusion deck, whatever, so that it's super clear and you just see the cards themselves. But yeah, so that's the screenshot tool. Here you can delete your deck. So there's going to be a pop-up, but it's not going to be like this. It's going to be like an actual good-looking pop-up. And then finally, you might have noticed there's something interesting here. I am thinking of implementing a different feature, a new feature called version history. So I don't have anything here. The button doesn't do anything, but the idea is, and I have a mock-up. So here's the mock-up of basically what would appear if you press the version history button. So the idea is that it's, you're going to get a pop-up and it's basically going to show you, all the various versions of the deck. So let's say you're working on your deck or for example, this is something that I've noticed with myself, like on Dueling Book, like with Chaos Control or Goad Control or whatever, I have a million different variants. And when I'm going through my deck selector, if I'm just trying to go from deck to deck, like if I'm trying to go from Goad Control to, let's say, Chaos Turbo or something like that, like the list becomes so much longer than it needs to be because I have like 10 different goat control variants, because, I'm just testing around and playing around with things. This way, your versions, and you don't have to do this obviously, but if you want to have like, keep your variants organized and whatnot, you can essentially create different versions of that deck, and you can rename them, you can delete them if you want. But basically, this is just another way to keep your collection of decks essentially much more sorted and just much easier to deal with, basically. So this is just an idea for now. I'm not gonna implement it just yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about. And regarding the trunk, this is basically something I also talked about in my previous video. I'm thinking of leaving a little bit of space here at the bottom, because I'm just really wondering, I really want to make as much use of the space that I have without making things feel too cramped. But the problem with the trunk, it's not like the bookmarks where you hover over card, you click bookmark, and you can bookmark any card from anywhere. The problem with the trunk is that you only have access to it with the tab. There is no trunk button here or anything like that. And I could maybe add it here as well. But one thing that I was maybe debating about is having like a draggable area here. So essentially, if you want to add a card to the trunk, you can essentially drag it in down to this like small section here. And you can even do it from the search and drag it here. And basically that would add it to the trunk for whatever deck, you're currently working with. But that's something that I was kind of debating about, but we'll see. And finally, as far as I can think of, another thing that I added was, if you right click, just like in Dueling Book basically, if you right click on a card that's in the grid, you can remove it. And if you right click on a card that's here from the search, you could basically like just quickly add it to the deck without having to drag it. And if you want to add a card specifically to your side deck, you can hold Control and then right click, and then it goes directly to your side deck. And the same logic works for the Fusion deck. So that's pretty neat. That definitely speeds up the deck building process. And like I said, this is going to have a bunch of shortcuts, a bunch of keyboard shortcuts too. But obviously there's still time for that, because I haven't even implemented the rulings or the bookmark logic here. But it's going along very neatly. Every time when I feel like I'm almost done with the deck builder, there's just new things that I want to add. But I didn't want to waste too much time just on the deck builder. I want to kind of start working on the actual dueling aspect. And so I have something very basic and very simple here in the dueling room. And don't mind the representation of the card. Like usual, it's going to look pretty butchered in the beginning, but obviously like I'm going to fix it and it's going to look a lot better afterwards. But this is a sample card that, let's say it's in your hand. So let's say this blue eyes represents a card in your hand. And let's say that this, rectangle here represents the field. So if you want to summon your blue eyes, you can basically drag it and drop it into the field, and then you summon it. So I was just kind of testing it out a little bit. I was playing around with, kind of how that would work. And yeah, I'm going to try to make it a very smooth experience. I definitely want this to be very responsive and very smooth. But the idea is, essentially this is going to be a drag and drop type of dueling experience, where instead of hovering over the card and you get a bunch of menu options, if a card is in your hand, you can, just drag it to the field and then summon it. But of course, I'm going to try to make it as intuitive as possible. And yeah, I think it's going to be really good. And it's going to be especially intuitive for mobile players, because, instead of trying to click on a card and seeing a super small menu that you can barely even read what it says, you could just drag and drop it, and it's going to be super easy, both on computer and on phone as well. So that is where I'm at currently. Like I mentioned in the previous video, once I start working on this whole dueling aspect, updates are going to probably slow down, but I do still want to provide you guys with some updates. And yeah, so that's basically it for this update. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you guys have any suggestions or whatever, let me know. Make sure to like, subscribe, and definitely share. Definitely talk to your friends about this. I do definitely want people to start becoming aware of this site so that when it's actually done, people already know about it and, are ready to play it. But yeah, that's it for now, and I'll see you guys in the next update.